Afternoon and welcome to the shed. At Melodion Playgroup in Evesham a couple of weeks ago I was led astray by that nice Pete Ward from Acorn Instruments, and I'm now the proud owner of a pre-loved Castagnari Sander, which is in need of a deal of tender loving care. It's an old model. Well, not quite sure how old. Looks like that, and plays really quite badly at the moment. So some reeds not sounding at all, some of them really flat. If I show you my tuning meter, this is Dirk's tuner, which is showing the tuning of both reeds at the same time. So for the first G, as an example, one's 26 cents flat and the other's 20 cents flat. So we'll have a look inside and see if there's any good reason why everything seems to be really flat until you get to the buttons that haven't been played a lot. Which seem to be reasonably well in tune, albeit in need of some work. So let's take the end off and have a look. So we need to have a look at the reeds. For those of you who've seen my other how-to videos, you know that we have to remove these 4 pins, 2 on the front, 2 on the back. Store them in my handy little block, which means I can always put them back where they came out from, which is quite important on these Italian boxes. Pair of end cutters, pull the pins out and then pull the end off. So the Sander 3-voice melodion, and we've got, that's the G row block, that's the D row block, and that's the bass reed block. And on the top is the stop, which either engages or disengages the low reeds. I'm just going to take the G block out for now, because that's the one we had a look at on the tuning meter. And straight away I notice, if I can persuade the camera to focus, that the reeds at the end that's been played, so that's the GA reed plate, J, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, are filthy. Don't know how close in this will focus. There is lots of dirt up the side of the reed, which may well stop it sounding at all. Plus this reed here, which we saw earlier was 30 cents odd flat, has got lots of corrosion on the tip, or dirt, not quite sure what it is, which will flatten the reed considerably. So my first plan is to take all these reeds off and put them through my ultrasonic bath. Now, I'm going to do one side at a time. I use these sandwich trays for putting reeds on, because it stops you losing them around the bench, etc. To pop the reeds out, this wax is starting to look a bit old, so I suspect if I just take my screwdriver edgeways on, insert it through the hole and just, yes, off it pops. Put the reeds out in order. Here is another example of Castagnari's cost cutting, shall we say. These reed blocks are obviously not designed for DG reeds. Hence, if we look at the top here, there's a piece of basically masking tape, I think, to shorten the length of the, so that the top of a reed doesn't just sort of float in space. I suspect these are probably GC reed blocks. Pitch lower, bigger reed plates, fit the block properly. This is a cheap method to fit reeds for the limited market in the UK. I will probably replace all that with something better. To which end I'm now using the back edge of the scalpel, going to scrape the dead wax off. Just masking tape. But basically the DG market is a small market, so making reed blocks specifically for DG reeds is probably too expensive. So that was their way around it. Like I say, I will do something a little prettier. So that's the worst of the wax off of the reed block. We'll do some more tidying up later on. Now time to clean up the reeds. Scalpel. Again, when I say clean up the reeds, take the wax off. Again, using the back of a scalpel, because this wax is quite crispy. Door comes off fairly easily. So there's all my reeds cleaned up nicely. They are truly filthy. The next part of the plan is to remove the valves, because I'm going to soak the reeds in water, which will kill the valves. Some of these are quite reusable. So just slide my scalpel underneath and the valve lifts off. Try and keep them in order. Scrape off the glue debris and then work my way slowly down. Alright, there's all the reeds cleaned off. For the reed spotters amongst you, these reeds are, says Antonelli, there we go. And if you look at the riveted end on the, come on camera, play the game. On the right hand side, because it's a nice domed rivet action, they are machine made reeds, or either machiner or super dural is another name for them. So not the best quality reeds, but the Sander was a beginner box. The next move is to the ultrasonic bath. This is my ultrasonic bath. It was cheap and cheerful off of Amazon, but it seems to do the job. We want some water. And my current favourite cleaning solution is this sensitive metals stuff, which is especially for cleaning all metals including brass, aluminium, copper, zinc, tin and alloys. Seems to work well. It has to be scientifically mixed 10:1. Just about that. Drop the reeds in. Set it up for 480 seconds, which is the longest it will run for. And press the on button. Right, that's done. We'll fish them out and go and dry them off. So back on the bench, and I can already see that they are much nicer. First thing to do is get the worst of the damp off. And try and order them. And hopefully, let's see if we can get close up again. There is one of the original dirtiest reeds. Camera refuses to focus in. All the worst of the muck has gone off the reed tongue and all the stuff off the reed plates disappeared, which hopefully means if I get my tuning table spare reed block, and the G reed that we heard earlier was something like 20 cents flat, is now showing us 2 cents sharp. So cleaning the reeds has fetched them more or less back into tune. Obviously they're going to need tuning when they're properly waxed in, etc. But it goes to show that the main problem with this box was just filthy reeds. I'm not sure what it was. I would have thought it was a smoker because of the sort of tacky gooiness of it, but the box doesn't smell, which is a normal sign of smokeriness. Thing to do now is to fully dry the reeds. Luckily it's winter time in the shed, so I've got my little radiator turned on and the reeds sit on top of there for 20 minutes or so. That'll dry them out fully, and then we can look at putting the valves back on and doing the other side of the reed block. Alright, the reeds have dried out nicely now on the heater. There is still a certain amount of possibly rust or corrosion of some sort on the reed tongues, on some reed tongues. So I'm going to take a reed lifter, slide it under the reed, thus, and the detailed sanding pen. This has got some 160 grit sandpaper on it, and just gently go over and remove the remaining corrosion. You can't get it all off, but you can get the worst off. So now it's just a matter of putting the valves back on. Personally, I use Evo Stick Impact, which I keep in this vise. And hopefully you can see there's a little blob of glue pops out the top. Wipe the valve across that and stick it in place. Glue, and then difficult to show. Et voila! So now we have a set of clean reeds with reset valves. Just as a matter of interest, we'll stick that G1 back on the tuning meter and see what's playing now it's got valves on, which makes a difference. Spot on pitch. Yeah, he's just a little bit flat. So it looks as if the tuning may not be too onerous once we get the box back together. But now the problem is, as I pointed out earlier, that this reed block is the wrong size for the reeds. So if we pop a reed in, there is the reed sat in, but there's this gaping hole at the top which Castagnari filled with a bit of masking tape, and I'm loath to do that because it just seems bodgy to me. So I will make little balsa wood inserts to go at the top of each reed chamber to take up the slack. I use balsa wood because it's easy to shape. People have made whole reed blocks out of balsa wood, so there's no real problem with it. Here's one I made earlier. It's easy to carve with just a scalpel. I won't show you the tediousness of making them. And that will then allow the reed to be waxed in properly without a gaping hole at the top. I'll go all the way down, probably not these two end ones, which I can see and you couldn't. These two end ones which are already filled with wax because they were enormously too big. So my next job is to chop out the balsa wood bits for all the rest of the positions. I'll come back to you when I've done it. Good morning, it's the next day. I've fitted all the little balsa wedges, and now it's just a matter of waxing the reeds in place. Anybody has got a length of narrow gauge railway track, which makes an excellent wedge to sit the reeds in, sit the reed blocks in. I've already fitted these two reeds down the end here, which had no balsa, but required a deal of tricky waxing, so I just got on and did that. Now place the reeds in, making sure they're the right way up. Now what we need to do is wax the reeds in. My method is to wax along the bottom first, then set the reed, make sure the reeds are well set down, wax the top, then wax the sides. I use a standard soldering iron, some of Charlie Marshall's wax sticks. So that's the bottom waxed in place. Now just check the reeds are properly sat down on the reed block before I wax along the top. And finally down the sides, mostly done by gravity, filled from the top. And there we get one side done. Next thing to do, get the tuning bench and just check all the reeds are working. Which they are. So there's the block, be what I think is a tidier setup than the masking tape, but that's just personal preference. All remains now is to do reeds on the other side of that, the D block, the bass reed block. Bass reed block's not in such bad condition as the main blocks, and again it looks as if this box was mostly played in G, because the D reeds are also not very dirty, but they're all coming off, they're all going to get the same treatment. So I'll get back to you when I've done that. One last thing is we'll just look at the tuning of this G reed, which was 25-ish cents flat. It's now 3 cents flat, so all the cleaning was worthwhile. Just a matter of tuning it up properly, but more of that later on. So I've done both the D row and the G row, clean, valve, rewaxed, and it sounds really, for something that's not in tune, it sounds not bad at all. Obviously it needs tuning, but it only goes to show that the real problem with it appears to have been just the dirt. Still got the low reed blocks to do, and then I'm going to move on to looking at the bass end. It'll need the same treatment with the reeds coming off and cleaning, but I'm probably going to fit 2 stops. One to take the low reed out the bass. Ooh. Currently taped off, and one to take the thirds out the chords, which are also currently taped off, so I get the nice but I need to take the box apart and have a look inside to see how easy stroke hard it is. I believe it should be quite easy, because I believe the blocks are standard blocks from Castagnari, which fit in various different melodions, some of which have stops and some of which don't, so it's only a matter of putting the slider mechanisms in. But we will see. I'll take you along, as they say, on the journey with me.